This is the second tutorial dealing with 10-3, our computer science student and student. We left off talking about the required hours abstract method. That method will be written in the subclass computer science student. You can see the implementation of that method. It returns the math hours, computer science hours, and general hours of study necessary for that program of study. Those were set as constants here. If you take a look at the computer science student class, you can see that there is one instance field that's additional, the academic track. The other instance fields are still there, but they're in the base class, so we don't write them again or use them again here in the subclass. You can see that the constructor brings in three things: the name, the ID, and then the track. And then immediately it follows a colon, base, name, comma, ID. That line of code is very important because that's what calls the superclass constructor. So that you are calling the superclass constructor within the subclass, and as soon as it goes out to student, it executes the constructor here. It will then come back to computer science student and continue with the academic track assignment. So that line of code is very important there. And you have your typical setter and getter for academic track. You don't need a setter and getter for the name and ID because that's already in the base class. And then you have this overridden method. An overridden method is similar to a overloaded method, with the exception that an overridden method has exactly the same name and exactly the same parameters. In this case, there are no parameters because it's a getter method, but if I did have parameters, they would have to match to be an overridden method. And you can see that there's a reserved word here, override, to indicate that. An overloaded method is a method that has the same name but different parameters. The code that executes all of this in Form 1 gets data from text boxes, just text data, and radio button data to assign the track. A computer science student is created. Remember, you cannot directly create just a plain student because it's an abstract class. 3 parameters are passed in, and then there's a text box that outputs the number of hours. The code here does not completely test all of the fields. It does not test the name, the ID, or the track by outputting them. I might try to do that in a future example. But that gives you an overview of an abstract-based class, a superclass and a subclass, and an overridden method within the abstract class. I believe we did try to run it earlier, and we created Fred Flintstone, got required hours. If I change information systems and get required hours, it doesn't change. It probably should in order to be a decent example, but the textbook didn't have it do that. And that is it for this tutorial.